I know you guys have been waiting for this review for a long time. I apologize for the delay, but here we have finally the review for the S20. In this video, we are going to cover the topics of range, a few issues that we've seen floating around on the internet. I'm going to address those as best as I can, as far as I know, with what's going to happen to them. So watch this video and find out.
S20 has been the most anticipated wheel since it was initially launched. Since then, Pagode has launched about 5 wheels or so to catch up. Well, long story short, as far as I've seen, none of which has captivated the majority of the EUC crowd in the way that the S20 has. King Song has broken many new grounds with the S20. First detailed smart BMS breakdown. Yes, I'm looking at you in motion. The first industrial design suspension. No BS EUC. First 100 plus volt wheel. And many more features they had refined from what they had learned from the S18. The 105 km/h free spinning S20 though was somewhat on par with the high-speed 100-volt Pagode wheel in terms of initial acceleration, but has allowed me to tackle a lot more terrain and be able to take this EUC to any situation without feeling left out. Unlike most other EUC content creators, I do not have any affiliate sales attached. This allows me to provide the most honest reviews of each EUC. But that also means I rely on subscribers and the feedback on these videos to keep this channel alive. I bring the most informative videos on the latest EUCs and electric rideables, so please consider subscribing. Now let's talk about suspension. The 240/75 suspension makes it difficult to find a suspension to replace. The current 750-pound coil is equipped for riders lighter than the 80 kg mark. However, for some reason, even with King Song knowing their general weight of their international riders, they opted for a 750-pound coil instead of the 1,000-pound, which would be much more suitable for most riders. The suspension is not quite as sensitive or as cushiony as the S18, but the S20 does shine when it comes to big drops or in more extreme conditions. It's also less maintenance. In the suspension, we've seen gaskets come out of the S18 due to alignment issues. It's not to say the S20 isn't comfortable. You can dial the rebound and compression adjustments. But riders who may be looking for a daily commuter or with daily curves and grooves may just be fine with owning an S18. To learn more about the differences between the coil and air suspension, I've left a few links below in the description that will help explain it better than I can. The power pads are comfortable. Riders do need to take the time, however, to find the perfect position. These pads do work a whole lot better than any other stock EUC pads on the current market. The spiked pedals do work well. I don't see much point in upgrading them besides aesthetic purposes. Even when I got my shoes and pedals really muddy, I still had enough friction. The range is around 100 kilometers on the S20, though I may need to do a more accurate test when the finalized S20 charger comes in. However, this is on par with results that we've seen from EVs, which is currently taking their S20 around North America on tour.
So we're out here in the middle of the night having a more in-depth look into the S20's front headlights. So I'm turning it on manually, but if you're riding at speed, the lights will actually adjust based on your speed. That's what the front headlight looks like. So if you come in closer, I'll show you guys the headlight. So this is obviously on full blast right now. I would say that this is brighter than the veteran Sherman's, just off memory. I wish I had a veteran here next to me, but the veteran light is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's V11 quality, but this is, off the top of my head, like I said, better than the veterans. Now, they are adjustable, so if I tilt this all the way down here, that's the left one down, and this is the right one down. So you can see that it's not blasting quite as far. I don't know if it's picking up on the camera, but the adjustment definitely does work. So basically right now, I can see as far as the curvature on the bench side here, about this side on the camera. And if I tilt it up, I can see basically all the way down to where those bikes are in the back here. Yeah, so the adjustment definitely works. So let me do a few shots. Let me show you guys what the headlight looks like if it's coming at you. In my experience, these lights do not shift their positions even on the roughest terrain. So they're kind of, there's a spring loaded screw here and that holds it in place, but it's easy enough where if you pull with your hands, it'll adjust, right? And obviously you don't have to have it all the way down or all the way up. You can have it somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. Just depends on how you like it, the kind of terrain you're riding on, what kind of situations you're dealing with.
Let's talk about the ride. The S20 is comfortable, however, when stepping back onto the 18XL, it made it feel like a paper-thin wheel in comparison. The wheel is wide, but not to the point where you wouldn't be able to adjust to it. After all, to allow riders to put in whichever tire they wish, they needed to widen the body. The wheel is balanced, though top-heavy because the wheel sits so much higher than any other EUC. But you won't have to worry about those wobbles that you did braking hard on the S18. The battery sits so close to the axle that the balance is great. Though the tire is produced by a smaller company named Geluer, the tire is actually great for both on and off-road uses. Accompanied with the wider rim, it makes this wheel ride unlike any other.
I didn't plan on filming this part, but after being on this production model for a little bit, I feel like this is important enough to say. This wheel has a really unique feel, and that's because of the wider rim. Now, we have seen wider tires on EUCs before, and that's been on the market for a long time, 3 inches wide. But this is the only model, as far as I know, that has a rim this wide. This just feels stable. It has that tendency to almost realign itself vertical, but not in that Z10 way where it's like overpowering. this is just enough that when you're carving, it just comes back in very smoothly, and you can really put pressure into the turns. Hopefully you guys try out an S20 in a city near you, and you guys will know what I'm talking about. The stability is just unlike any other. The gold water test on the S20. Everything is functioning. Both lights are on, as you can see. Rear light is still on, display is still on, display is still on, wheel still functions. By the way, do not do this with your S20. This is only an extreme test. If you're cleaning off your S20, just use a cloth, dampen it, and then just wipe it off. Now let's talk about the concerns of the S20 that people are having with this wheel. The front piece here. This front bumper is currently made of plastic, and it does feel quite cheap. Actually, since filming that last clip, the new handle came in. So this is the handle that they claim will withstand a force of 90 kilos. Here's a clip of me trying to break one. It's actually quite impressive. The seat is installed on the top here with Velcro. It's a bit soft right now, and it's not thick enough. So you do feel some hard impacts right here as you're going over some bumps or uneven terrain. There is also the rear kickstand. As you can see with mine, during a few, Black Diamond trail jumps, I wasn't able to get enough speed, and that's clipped the rear there. And so, well, that kickstand is gone, but the wheel still works fine. With the kickstand still works fine. Another concern is this trolley handle. Very similarly, just like when the S18 was launched, people were concerned about this coming off during a jump, and then the wheel going into lift mode, and you falling over. That's not the case, and even with the S18, I've heard of very, very little to no cases of that ever happening. As you're riding, if this does come off, the wheel does not topple over. So you're not gonna fall. But in all my testing through all these past months, half year, this handle has come off once. They are updating the magnet so that it is bigger to prevent any likelihood of that happening. So that's good to hear. Now let's talk about the cutouts that we've been hearing about. So this wheel is 126 volts, and they are using grade A MOSFETs, but because the voltage is so high, there's a limit on the current as you're accelerating from zero for the first 3 meters. That's what's been explained to me. So for the first 3 meters, I take it easy, but if you're going at speed and you do want to accelerate, the torque is still there. It's just that because the high voltage and what the MOSFETs can bear, if they do push out more current, you could end up burning your MOSFETs, and well, you'll need a motherboard replacement. Then let's talk about the speed oscillations at 50 kilometers an hour. We saw in Law's video where the wheel was kind of wobbling at 50 kilometers an hour. That's because they didn't update the firmware. In the latest firmware, this wheel does not do that. And that's the case with this wheel as well. That issue has been fully eliminated. Now, the last thing is this wheel, unlike the air suspension, needs a braking in period. So the coil does soften up after you do a couple of drops. And the current pre-production model does not come with a wrench for the ring. I do hope that in the production models, they do come with that little wrench, because I've currently had to use a flathead and a hammer to kind of knock that ring down. So those are my concerns of the S20 and your concerns. Hopefully that addresses and answers your questions on the S20. And if you do have any more concerns on the S20 that I haven't addressed, or that I may know the answer to, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll see if I can find the answer for you.
How do I sum up the S20 then? Well, for riders who are concerned of first batch issues, I see a lot of it being addressed and fixed. In retrospect, these issues are a whole lot better than when they launched the S18 in 2019. I would not be surprised if this is the best-selling wheel for at least the next year. We could desire more range, but you would lose out on suspension and the ability to jump high with this wheel. Keeping in mind everything that's packed into the S20, 35 kilograms isn't a bad weight. The S20 gives me no reason to own any other wheel unless I'm more into riding a tremendously long distance, but that's personally not my style. Finally, I'd recommend anyone who hasn't taken their wheel off-road to do so. Challenge yourself on the trails and try new things. After all, isn't that the purpose of life? If you're thinking about picking up an S20 or any other EUC for that matter from a reputable seller, please consider Rev Rides if you're in the USA, EVs if you're in Canada, Shoe Inatech if you're from Thailand, E-Rides if you're in Europe. Thanks to these sponsors for making this video possible.